Hey guys, it's Sam, and this is my spoiler-free review of Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Alira Sanz. This book is a YA contemporary that follows Aristotle and Dante, that are two Mexican-American boys who grow up in the 80s, and they meet, they become best friends, and they fall in love, and it was beautiful. So this is another book that I've been meaning to read forever, and everyone has told me to read it forever, and I knew I was going to love it, but I also was putting it off like I do for the perfect moment, and I knew I finally had to pick this one up. This is a book that everybody recommends for wonderful LGBTQ+ representation, and they are not wrong, and I was so blown away by it. I went in with really high expectations, and they were still blown away. So first off, I do want to talk about the world building. Typically speaking with contemporary, I do not talk about the world building, but I wanted to mention it because this book does take place in the 80s, but I didn't feel like that was a huge point of concern or a point of the world, which is good because I'm not typically a fan of like 80s anything. I don't really have a lot of nostalgia for the 80s. I was born in 89, but I do not really care about the 80s. I don't care about the music or the culture, really anything. I feel like the 80s is a really weird period of time. Like either you love the 80s or you hate it, and I'm not really, I don't really like it. So I was kind of glad that that wasn't a main plot point, that this was definitely not like this stylized 80s that we see, but it was a book that could definitely take place at any time period. It felt very timeless and not like it was just stuck in a certain time period with all like the tropes and everything like that. So next I'm going to talk about the characters. I absolutely loved the two main characters of Aristotle and Dante. They are two very different boys, but they are also struggling with similar things, but they're dealing with them differently, and they have a lot of similarities on face value. Like if you were to look at them on a piece of paper, you would think like, oh, these people are very similar, but they have very distinct and different personalities, and I really loved that because sometimes you can get characters that are really similar like this in a relationship that will kind of like meld together, and these two boys had very distinct personalities that I really enjoyed. Also, I loved the family element in this story. I was not expecting that at all, and I was so pleasantly surprised when that happened. So obviously, the love story is a central part of the story, but it also shares the spotlight with the family dynamics and the family relationships between these boys and their families and each other's families, and I loved that about it. These families are so wonderful and complex, and they just feel real. They are very loving families, but they're also very flawed, and they just felt like they had realistic problems. But I really loved that the main focus of the families wasn't on the boys' sexuality. Because a lot of times in LGBTQ+ books, you will have the families being this main point of contention. They will be unsupportive, they'll be awful to the main characters, and while that is a reality for many people, there's also the reality of families who are very supportive and who are very loving. I think that's really important to have in a YA story because typically speaking, like I said, you'll have families as this point of contention, this point of angst and drama, and we didn't have that with this, and I really enjoy that because even in books that aren't about sexuality at all, you have the families a lot of times as being either completely absent or a negative part of the story, and that was not the case at all. I loved both of the boys' families, and they felt very real, and they made me very emotional, both of them, because they just felt like fully realized families. Lastly, I want to talk about the writing. I was really surprised by the writing in this book. I didn't go into it expecting to feel any kind of way about the writing. I thought it was going to get very typical, straightforward YA contemporary, and I was completely wrong. This book is almost written kind of in a stream of consciousness type way in a lot of ways because you're in Aristotle's head and you're kind of dealing with all of his major points in his life. So I really loved that you have him just showing you the most important things in his life, and this takes place over a couple of years. So you don't have every little bitty detail being followed. Like you just get chapters that follow like really important points, and that meant that the chapters were fairly short and that it really just focused on the heavy hitting stuff, and I really enjoyed that about it, that it kept along at a very quick pace. This could be read in one sitting for sure. And that you had this stream of consciousness and very kind of almost blunt, simple writing at times, mixed in with this beautiful, almost lyrical, just atmospheric kind of writing, and it was done so well. He wove together the writing styles so beautifully, and there was so many beautiful lines in this. I originally was going to tab this book, but there were so many lines that I wanted to tab that I would have had a tab on every page, and I'm not exaggerating. There's literally a beautiful line on every page. So I was like, I can't even tab this. I'll just read the whole thing again if I want to reference any kind of beautiful lines from this book because it is that beautiful. So I really enjoyed the writing. I loved the characters. I think that this book is obviously a masterpiece, which is what everyone says, and they're so right. I cannot wait to reread this book because there's a lot of things that I feel like I did miss. There's a lot of elements that kind of tie the story into the title, actually, and discovering the secrets of the universe and stuff, which I really loved, and I'm going to pick up more on my reread as well. I love when books do that, and they kind of tie everything into kind of a theme, and that theme usually is the title. So I loved that. I love this story. Like I said, I cannot wait to reread it. I think it should be on like everybody's must-read list. I absolutely adored it. Obviously, I gave Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe 5 out of 5 stars. So comment down below and let me know what you thought of Aristotle and Dante. Thank you all for watching, and I will see all of you guys soon. Bye!